In my previous class, we discussed about the powers and functions of president. In this session, we will be discussing about vice president of India. Vice president, who is called Uparashpati also, and is elected for 5 years by all the members of both the houses of parliament by single transferable vote system in accordance with proportional representation. Children, one thing I want to tell you that what is the difference between president and vice president and what is the function of vice president. Mainly, he works as a ex officio chairman of Raj Sabha, and in the absence of president, he looks after all the works of president. So after president, the second highest post is vice president. But what is the difference here? That here in president's case, who participates? The members of electoral college. And who are the members of this electoral college? Elected members of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, plus all the state legislative assemblies of all the states, right? But in the case of vice president, only the elected members of Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha participates in the election process of vice president. This is one of the difference between president and vice president. Second thing is that in the case of president, nominated members did not participate because those nominated members are being done by president, so they do not participate in the election process of the president. But in the case of vice president, all the elected plus nominated members of Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha participate in the election process of vice president. This is the second difference between president and vice president. Next is removal process. If you go through the removal process, there is also one of the difference. In the case of president, impeachment takes place. But in the case of vice president, no impeachment takes place. An act has been passed by Rajya Sabha and that has to be passed also by Lok Sabha. And for that, 14 days prior information should be sent to the vice president for its removal or any other activities done by vice president. So no impeachment is there in the case of vice president. No impeachment takes place. Okay. Rather, an act is of Raj Sabha is passed, which is also approved by Lok Sabha. There are 2-3 cases for removal. One is if an act of Rajya Sabha is passed, for that prior 14 days information should be given to vice president. Second is in the case of death. Third is in the case of resignation, and this resignation will be submitted to president, because above vice president is president, right? Above vice president is president. So he can also give the resignation letter to president. In the case of oath, it will be given by president, because we know that above vice president is president, so he or she is going to give the oath. These are all the things. Vice president is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Ex officio chairman means by default he is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. He performs the same functions which a Lok Sabha speaker does. So he is like a monitor of Rajya Sabha, you can say. Since the vice president is not the member of Rajya Sabha, she does not participate in the voting of the house, but in the case of tie, he can exercise his casting vote. Only in the case of tie. Apart from that, he cannot take part. Like, president must be one of the member of Lok Sabha, but vice president must be the member of Rajya Sabha. Vice president must be, because he is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. Whenever the office of president falls vacant due to his death, resignation or impeachment, the vice president takes over the officiating president till a fresh election is held. And this new president must be elected for 6 months. There is a difference here from America. If a vice president is an acting president, he can only be on that post for 6 months, not more than that. He cannot be for unlimited period, which is found in American president. Because whatever process we have taken about the American president, in the case of the president of India, we have all taken this idea from American constitution. But here this thing differs. He or she can only be acting as a president for 6 months, not more than that. And within that 6 months, a fresh election should be there. As officiating president, the vice president is entitled to all the powers. Yes, he or she will enjoy all the powers, privileges, emoluments due to the president of India. So this is all about the vice president. Vice president of India is also the chancellor of central universities, and governors enjoys a similar position in the states. As vice president is the chancellor of all the central universities, not state, central. Governor is all of the state. Union Council of Ministers. We all know that Prime Minister along with Union Council of Ministers runs the government. It will aid and advise the president in the exercise of his or her functions. The Council of Ministers is responsible to the popularly elected lower house of the parliament. Which is the lower house? Lok Sabha. The Council of Ministers comprises of the minister, cabinet ministers and ministers of state. These are the 3 categories of ministers: cabinet ministers, ministers of state, and you will also get the other is the deputy ministers. Okay. The composition of Council of Ministers starts with the appointment of Prime Minister by the President of India, and also the other ministers are appointed afterwards by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. So actually the Council of Ministers are appointed by the President. But now which person is going to become the minister, that will be decided by Prime Minister. There is no fixed qualification for becoming a minister except that a minister must be a member of either house of the parliament. Yes, only one thing is that it must be a member of either house of the parliament. In case a non-member is made a minister, she can continue only for maximum period of 6 months and has to secure a seat in either house of the parliament. For example, if some person is becoming a minister and he or she is not a member of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, within 6 months one has to become the member of any of the house. It is very compulsory. Otherwise, he or she's power will be taken. While appointing the Prime Minister, the President has no choice. Only he have to give the oath to the Prime Minister. And normally the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha is being appointed as Prime Minister. And if no single party gets the majority, then 2 or 3 parties combine together to form a government, and that is called a coalition government, which you have already read in class 7. So the government is headed by a Prime Minister, and that government is called a coalition government. When one party does not get majority, then 2 or more parties join together to form a government called coalition government. The Council of Ministers works like a team. Yes, and everyone is equally responsible for its acts and decisions. No one can say that I am only responsible. Nobody can be blamed that particular person is responsible. So all the ministers sink and swim together. एक ही साथ डूबना भी है और एक ही साथ तैर के बाहर भी निकल के आना है. And that's why it is called collective responsibility. Because all the Council of Ministers are working like a team. The Cabinet and the Council of Ministers are not the same bodies. Council means there are 3 categories of ministers. Cabinet, Ministers of State, and Deputy Ministers. Whereas the Cabinet consists of ministers which are influential and important members of the party. The topmost rank of the minister is Cabinet Ministers. And Council means the Council of Ministers comprises of 3 categories of ministers. Cabinet, Minister of State, and Deputy Ministers. Right? Functions of the Council of Ministers. What are it? It is responsible for the formation of internal and external policies, taking decisions regarding the national and international level, and running the administration through various ministers. With the help of different categories of ministers, it runs the government. It also performs the certain legislative functions like approving annual budget and making laws time to time. Now is the functions of Prime Minister. We all know that Prime Minister is the head of the government and he enjoys the real powers. So what are its functions? First is to form Council of Ministers. He will decide that which person is going to become Cabinet rank Minister, Minister of State, or Deputy Minister. So actually he is going to form the Council of Ministers. He will also preside over the meetings of the Cabinet as well as Council of Ministers. He will also coordinate the working of various departments. There are different departments: Education Department, Water Supply Department, Electricity Department. So he will coordinate and manage. It will also advise the President to summon or prorogue the session or to dissolve the Lok Sabha when it is not in session. If it will think that before 5 years the Lok Sabha should be dissolved, he will advise the President to dissolve it. To advise the President about the important appointments, these are the appointments: Auditor General of India, Ambassadors, Chairman of Union Public Service Commission. The full form is Union Public Service Commission. All the appointments will be done by the president, but on the advice of Prime Minister. It will act as a link between president and cabinet. Here is your president, then is your prime minister, and then is your cabinet. Okay. So he is a link between president and cabinet. As the leader of the party, he or she opinion carries maximum weightage in taking all the decisions, and as the leader, he will carry maximum weight in taking all the party's decisions, and his views on various particular political and economic issues are valued and respected. In a parliamentary form of government, we all know that Prime Minister occupies an important position and enjoys a lots of power. But in the presidential form of government, president has the enormous power and carries the important and enjoys the important position. So these are your topics which I have discussed. So please go through the video, and your homework is to write keywords. What is your homework? Your homework is to write keywords. To write keywords in your civics notebook. Okay? Thank you, children.